It's 7:30 in the evening across India. I am Tanvi Taneja. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Global. We'll bring you the day's big stories from across India and the world. DD India continues its coverage from the Israel-Hamas war. My colleague Amritpal Singh is in Jerusalem, Israel, and together we will present to you DD India Global. Amrit, how are you?
Tanvi, I'm very good, thank you. Good afternoon. It's 5 in Israel and Palestine and 4 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, Israel has denied visa to senior UN official after the UN chief's remarks on Israeli aggression in this conflict. The latest in the humanitarian aid access into Gaza, and also the French president's talks with Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. But first, Tanvi, to you for the headlines.
Qatar's diplomatic efforts crucial in finding a humanitarian solution to the conflict in Gaza, says a top Israeli official. Qatar condemns what they call the collective punishment policy on Gaza. Israel accuses Iran of ordering recent attacks by its proxies in Yemen, Iraq and Lebanon.
They are called by Iran, operate from Iraq, Yemen and Lebanon.
India tells the United Nations Security Council that it stands in solidarity with Israel against terrorism, but warns that the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is equally alarming. And India set to overtake Japan as the third largest economy by 2030, says an S&P Global Market Intelligence report. In latest news, the United Nations Security Council will be voting later on Wednesday on rival proposals by the United States of America and Russia for action on the conflict between Israel and Palestinian militant group Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Both countries seek UN Security Council resolutions to address shortages of food, water, medical supplies and electricity in Gaza. A top Israeli official has said that Qatar is becoming essential to finding humanitarian solutions and that its diplomatic efforts are crucial in this Israel-Hamas war. After a meeting with Turkey's foreign minister, Qatar's prime minister has said that there has been some progress on negotiations over release of nearly 200 people held hostages by Hamas. Turkey's foreign minister said that an Israeli ground operation in Gaza will lead to a massacre.
A ground operation on Gaza will turn this violence into a full-blown massacre. The measures that can be taken to stop the war and the attacks on civilians are an emergency.
Qatar, in coordination with the US, is mediating talks between Hamas and Israeli officials over the release of hostages.
First of all, regarding the progress on the hostages negotiation, it's still ongoing. We have seen some progress in the past few days with the release of the first 2 Americans and then the release of the 2 women two days ago with the mediation of Egypt as well. I think that if we compare where we started and where we are right now, there is some progress and some breakthrough, and we will remain hopeful. The negotiations are still ongoing.
My colleague Amritpal Singh has been covering the Israel-Hamas conflict and at present is in Jerusalem, Israel. Amrit, over to you for the latest on the war front.
Thank you, Tanvi, for that. And as the Israel-Hamas war rages on, people are being internally displaced both in the Gaza Strip, where they're moving south from north, and also in the Israeli towns and villages along its border with the Gaza Strip and Lebanon. I took a stock of the situation. Take a look. Even as the Hamas-Israel war wages on, the biggest cost is being paid by the people. As always in war, the humanitarian cost is the biggest cost. You can see these people. I am in Jerusalem right now, in a hotel in Jerusalem. People have been evacuated from villages across the borders, both with the Gaza Strip and also people with the Lebanon border in the north. Mostly old people, little children have been evacuated, and people have been put up in hotels where their municipalities, etc., are paying for it. And it is not easy to stay, to get displaced from their homes. Many of them tell me that their children, their young sons, their daughters are fighting right now in the army and are there in the Israeli army, and mostly old people, little children, mothers who have been displaced, have been put up in these facilities by the government of Israel. And this is the situation in Israel. Along, these people are from different villages along the borders with Lebanon and with the Gaza Strip. Even as the situation here is so, the situation in Gaza remains very, very tense, with about 6 lakh people being displaced already. The government, if you can ask my camera person to show you what the situation here is. These people come in and stay in these hotels in the evening. Generally, the local communities get together and organize some singing sessions to amuse these people, to entertain these people in these hard times. With cameraman SP Dubey, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Jerusalem. So that's what the situation really is in big towns like Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, Galilee, people being displaced, and it's not easy to leave your homes. Well, meanwhile, Israel has denied visa to senior UN official amid the West Asian country's growing dispute with the world body. Israel's ambassador to the UN said that the visa was denied to the UN Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs. And Israel-Gaza conflict has ended its 19th day with over 7,000 casualties on both sides. The UN has called for an immediate ceasefire.
Don't be scared. Your family is safe. Civil defense personnel told the father under rubble in Gaza while being rescued. This is just one. There are thousands of such stories of rescue and survival. These parents tied blue and white bracelets on the wrists of their children. This is their way of recognizing their children if something happens.
I have seen bodies ripped apart. If something happens and they are in pieces, this way I will recognize them from these bracelets. I will collect their parts.
Hundreds of such families have taken shelter in these refugee camps in Khan Yunis. Everyone has a story to tell. The United Nations says there is clear violations of international humanitarian law in the Gaza Strip.
The situation in the Middle East is growing more dire by the hour. The war in Gaza is raging and risks spiraling throughout the region. Divisions are splintering societies, tensions threaten to boil over. At a crucial moment like this, it is vital to be clear on principles, starting with the fundamental principle of respecting and protecting civilians.
The International Monetary Fund also raised concern about the loss of lives in the Israel-Gaza war and the destruction of economic activity. Israel has imposed a total siege on Gaza. Countries have engaged in diplomatic talks focused on movement of humanitarian aid to the enclave. Some consignment of trucks have reached, while many of them are stuck in Rafah, the main crossing in and out of Gaza that doesn't border with Israel. Abhishek Bose for DD India.
And world leaders are meeting at the UN. They are coming here in Tel Aviv to find a concrete solution to the crisis, to defuse the crisis amid calls for a complete ceasefire. French President Emmanuel Macron met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Cairo. Meanwhile, the Czech Prime Minister is currently meeting Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv. Here's the report. Even as the Israel-Hamas war intensifies and Israel intensifies its aerial bombings and threatens both a ground assault and assault through the sea route, the situation is escalating. But India at the UN has said that civilian death count and civilian casualties are a matter of serious concerns and peace talks should be resumed. At the UN Security Council open debate, many countries, especially the Arab countries, stressed for a humanitarian pause, for a ceasefire and resumption of peace talks and immediate cessation of all military campaign by Israel. It was also appealed that proportionality be maintained in the activity, the military activity that Israel is doing, because the civilian death count and the evolving humanitarian crisis poses a great risk. On the other hand, the World Bank says that if this conflict spirals, it could have devastating consequences for the Middle East economies or the West Asian economies, which is the hub of energy and our oil-producing countries. And the world cannot afford this even as the Ukraine-Russia war rages on. The world just is in no position to have another war. So where is the war going? Israel is insistent that it will not stop until it decimates Hamas. Though it's not very clear what do they mean by decimating Hamas. If they completely eradicate Hamas, assuming that happens, what will they do later? Who will be the new political leadership in the Gaza Strip? These are the questions being asked here, but Israel says it's not time for these questions to be asked. Right now their objective is to finish Hamas and see that the terrorism is wiped out. With cameraman SP Dubey, this is Amrit Pal Singh for DD India in Jerusalem. And as the Israel-Hamas war intensifies further, the Israeli military has accused Iran of having ordered recent attacks by Tehran-backed militia in Yemen, Iraq and Lebanon. Take a look.
The war between Israel and Hamas entered its 19th day on Wednesday and is the deadliest of 5 Gaza wars for both sides. The Israeli military accused Iran on Wednesday of having ordered recent attacks by Tehran-backed militias in Yemen, Iraq and Lebanon, and said Israel was jointly monitoring the region with its US ally.
Iran helped Hamas before the war directly with training, supplying weapons, money, technological know-how. Even at these moments, Iranian aid to Hamas continues in intelligence and incitement on the networks, in encouragement all over the world, in incitement against the state of Israel. In the Middle East, where the couriers, the proxies, as they are called by Iran, operate from Iraq, Yemen and Lebanon, the instructions come from only one place, from Iran.
Israel's military intensified its bombing of southern Gaza overnight.
Fuel will not enter the Gaza Strip. Hamas used the petrol for its military infrastructure. Fuel that Hamas stole from UNRWA should be taken back from Hamas and given it to the hospitals.
India has expressed concern over the Israel-Hamas war. New Delhi said it stands in solidarity with Israel against terrorism, but warns that the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is equally alarming.
India has always negotiated two-state solution to the Israel-Palestine issue, leading to the establishment of a sovereign, independent and viable state of Palestine, living within secure and recognized borders side by side in peace with Israel, taking into account the legitimate security concerns of Israel. Towards this, we reiterate the need for an early resumption of direct peace negotiations.
The head of Lebanon's Hezbollah met with top leaders of the Palestinian militant factions Hamas and assessed what their alliance must do to achieve victory for the resistance in Gaza. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim joined 16,000 pro-Palestinian supporters in capital Kuala Lumpur to condemn Israel's barbaric acts in Gaza and denounce its Western supporters. Many world leaders have already called for a halt to fighting to allow aid into the besieged enclave. On Wednesday, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan also called for an immediate ceasefire. French President Emmanuel Macron met with Jordan's King Abdullah II in Amman in an effort to prevent regional escalation. Munmun Bhattacharya's report for DD India.
And that's it from me here in Jerusalem. It's back to you, Tanvi, in New Delhi.
Thank you, Amritpal. Amritpal Singh joining us all the way from Jerusalem in Israel. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. US President Joe Biden welcomes Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to the White House ahead of an official state visit. And Washington, D.C. and 8 other U.S. states are filing lawsuits against Meta's Instagram, accusing it of fueling a youth mental health crisis. All that on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. On to America now. Cooperation on critical minerals and bolstering infrastructure for the Pacific Islands will be on the agenda as Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese begins a 4-day visit to Washington. He received a lavish welcome at the White House as US President Biden looks to strengthen the relationship with Australia as part of his strategy to counter China's influence in the Indo-Pacific. DD India's Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
As the Biden administration is increasingly caught up in dealing with conflicts in Europe and the Middle East, the Australian leader's state visit will refocus its foreign policy back to the Indo-Pacific and its long-term interest in countering the rise of China. This state visit will include Prime Minister Albanese's 9th meeting with President Joe Biden in the past 16 months, showing just how important the relationship is for the US. For Australia, making progress on the AUKUS submarine deal will be a priority. The trilateral accord with the UK would give Australia access to nuclear-powered submarines for the first time, and it's widely seen as a counter to China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific region. But the pact faces hurdles in the US Congress, with Prime Minister Albanese saying that he'll meet US lawmakers every day that he's in Washington to highlight the need for progress. He also told reporters that he's focused on extending Australia's security alliance with the US into an economic and technology partnership as well. They will discuss a critical minerals task force to boost private investment in Australia's rare earths industry and to reduce global reliance on China. They'll also discuss infrastructure projects for the Pacific Islands. But Ukraine and the Middle East will also be on the agenda, of course, with the US president keen to show that he can manage the crises at hand while also furthering the US's long-term foreign policy objectives. Kate Fisher in Washington reporting for DD India.
Still with the US, Republicans have selected Mike Johnson as their next Speaker nominee in a secret ballot vote on Tuesday. Republican Tom Emmer dropped out of the race just hours after he was selected as the latest GOP nominee. Mike is the 4th nominee put forward after 3 others failed to win enough support from colleagues and the 2nd nominee of the day. Johnson was selected after 3 rounds of voting. The House has been without a Speaker and has been unable to pass bills since Kevin McCarthy was ousted on 3rd of October. On to Asia now. China sacked its finance minister and science and technology minister along with its defense minister on Tuesday. China's defense minister, General Li Shangfu, who has been absent from public space, was also dismissed as state councillor. Chinese foreign minister Qin Gang, who was removed as foreign minister, was also stripped of his state councillor position.
In a sweeping cabinet reshuffle, China on Tuesday sacked 3 of its ministers without giving any reasons. The replacement for 2, including finance and science and technology, have been announced, while the defense minister's replacement is yet to be announced. The Chinese government removed finance minister Liu Kun and appointed Lan Fon in his place. Before Lan was appointed to the post, he headed the finance department of the party in late September. Another official announcement said the National People's Congress removed the Minister of Science and Technology, Wang Zhijiang, and appointed Yin Huzhen in his place. Wang served as the Deputy Minister of Science and Technology since July 2012 and became the Minister of Science and Technology in March 2018. China also removed Defense Minister General Li Shangfu without any reasons given. Li was not seen in public for almost 2 months. He was also removed as state councillor. Shangfu is the second leader to disappear this year. In July, China dramatically ousted Foreign Minister Qin Gang after a prolonged absence from public view. He was also stripped of his state councillor position. Wang Yi, who was the director of the Office of the Central Commission for Foreign Affairs, was appointed as foreign minister. The disappearance of Li and Qin have raised questions from diplomats about the abrupt changes in China's leadership at a time when the country's economic growth is sluggish and its relations with the United States have soured over a range of issues.
Now, are social media platforms a cause of mental health issues for you? Or are you an Instagram addict? Well, dozens of US states are suing Meta Platforms and its Instagram unit, accusing them of fueling a youth mental health crisis by making their social media platforms addictive. In a complaint filed on Tuesday, the Attorney Generals of 33 states, including California and New York, said that Meta repeatedly misled the public about the dangers of its platforms and knowingly induced young children and teenagers into addictive and compulsive social media use. Children have long been an appealing demographic for businesses which hope to attract them as consumers at ages when they may be more impressionable and solidify brand loyalty. And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Authorities in the South Korean capital of Seoul conducted a crowd control drill ahead of the one-year anniversary of a deadly Halloween crush. Officials showcased an AI-backed program designed to detect and alert potential overcrowding. The early warning system will comprise of over 900 CCTV cameras in 71 major locations. Bulgaria has taken the first step towards the construction of 2 additional reactors at its only nuclear power plant. The new reactors will add combined capacity of 2,300 megawatts. The facility currently has 2 Soviet-made nuclear reactors in operation. A record 475 companies, including major car makers, are taking part in the first Japan Mobility Show, formerly known as the Tokyo Motor Show. Electric vehicles took center stage as Japanese automakers unveiled their next-generation concept cars. The event is being held for the first time in 4 years. Now, in a distinguished ceremony at the White House, US President Joe Biden awarded the prestigious National Medal of Technology and Innovation to 2 accomplished Indian-American scientists, Ashok Gadgil and Subra Suresh. They were both honored with the National Medal of Science. President Biden recognized these exemplary individuals, along with leading American scientists and innovators, for their groundbreaking work in science, technology, and innovation. India has become an increasingly attractive destination for multinationals across a wide range of industries. The US-based global ratings agency Standard & Poor's Global Market Intelligence said in its latest report. Take a look.
With an expanding consumer market and a large industrial sector, the Indian economy is set to surpass Japan by 2030. As per the S&P Global Market Intelligence, India will continue to be one of the world's fastest-growing economies over the next decade. The report also suggests India's nominal GDP will rise from $3.5 trillion in 2022 to $7.3 trillion by 2030, making it the second largest economy in the Asia-Pacific region.
The first time when India added 1 trillion, it was in 57 years. The next time 1 trillion added in 7 years. Now every 3 years is adding 1 trillion. And our objective is that this 3 years addition of 1 trillion could actually come down to 2 years. If we are able to do that objective, I think the prognosis to a larger incremental size of the economy in the next 20 years is perfectly possible.
India is a favorable place for important long-term growth markets in a wide range of industries, including manufacturing sectors such as autos, electronics and chemicals. The nation's rapidly growing domestic consumer market is another key accelerator for the economy. The IMF in October 2023 also revised India's growth estimate to 6.3% in 2024 due to resilient domestic demand and strong investment inflows.
The growth rate that they see now and projections of the growth rate that they see for the next 5-6 years, and that's saying quite a lot, is more or less very stable. In the world economy now, it's very difficult to get any large-sized economy where the growth rate is going to be so stable. That is what is attracting investors.
As per the report, the Indian economy has continued to show sustained growth despite high base year effects. The long-term outlook for the Indian economy is also supported by a number of key growth drivers, including the middle class, which is helping to drive consumer spending. The rapid growth of e-commerce and the shift to 5G smartphone technology will also be a boost to homegrown unicorns. S&P Global has also predicted that India's GDP will surpass Germany's by 2030. By the end of 2022, India's GDP had already become larger than the GDP of UK and France. The expansion of public digital platforms and path-breaking measures such as PM Gati Shakti, National Logistics Policy, and production-linked incentive schemes will give an immense boost to India's overall growth.
It's International Artist Day today. Have you ever thought what would happen if art met AI? Well, artificial intelligence has formed a new space in art as the world observes International Artist Day on Wednesday. We take you through London's art gallery where art meets artificial intelligence with the opening of a new show by artist and AI researcher Song-Wen Chang, who is collaborating and whose collaborations are selling for thousands of pounds. These machines named DUG or drawing operations unit generation mimic the artist's hand-drawn gestures and synchronously draw along. Chang's latest exhibition, Relational Gestures, is at the House of Fine Art in Mayfair, London. That's all in this edition of DD India Global. Join us tomorrow at 5 and 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at DD India Live. We will be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.